that's just a one-off. And then I thought about, could it hurt to just push the audition button? So there it was in the middle of the night, and I hit that dang button, and I said to my friends, my besties back in Oregon, I said, hey, girls, you're not going to believe what I just did. Snoop turned for me, played his replay. I had no idea a replay existed. And so I got that buzzer, and I'm telling you, you see me jumping up and down like a hyena because you asked what it was like to get advanced to the next round. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it.
Hi, I'm Glennis Woods Mullins, and I love to help women to vibe, to be more vibrant, intuitive, beautiful, and empowered in midlife. So come on, let's vibe.
Have any of you out there in Vibe listening land had that conversation with your bestie or maybe your siblings or maybe even your parents about things like, don't you think it's about time you stop doing such and such? Have you had that conversation? I know I've had that conversation with myself. In fact, many of us, as we age, especially after 40, we probably have that kind of conversation with ourselves. The question is, do you listen to it? I know when I turned 63, I decided to hang up my dancing shoes. That was my last performance. And you know what? I just don't want to be that girl. I didn't want to be that girl that, was still dancing on stage and people were thinking, boy, she just sit her butt down. Okay. So I stopped. But when it comes to what I do here with you on the podcast and with my clients and social media, my membership programs and all the different things I do in my company, I've decided I'm not sitting down. I'm going to still keep doing it. So the question is, what motivates us to keep going when everybody else thinks that maybe we should stop or when society says that maybe we should stop? That's why I was really so excited to bring Gail Bliss on to the podcast. I have to tell you, I saw Gail Bliss on The Voice, and I was fascinated because I knew that she was a little bit older than the other contestants, but she was fabulous. And Gail, I'm so happy that we connected. I'm so happy to have you here on the Vibe Living podcast. Welcome. And full disclosure, Gail and I have tried several times to do this. She has a very busy schedule. And then to add to it, she's a flight attendant. So an international flight attendant. So we were dealing with different time zones and flight schedules and all the different things. But here we are. And I'm so glad that we are here. Gail, you look wonderful, by the way. And I love your background.
Thank you so much. I have an old house. It's built in 1848 in South Carolina. I believe it's the oldest house in the county. I like interesting things, whether in anything in life, but in this case, architecture and history.
Tell us a little bit about you, what your background is, and how you came to be on The Voice.
Oh my goodness, a very long story. I'm a multifaceted person. I've always been very intrigued by adventure and started flying special at all. It was just something we did. I never pursued anything with it other than playing the saxophone, which I still do play today. And I studied music through that. But as far as a vocalist, I didn't study at all. I first sang when I married Mr. Bliss, which my name is an honest one from my first marriage. When I first married him, my dad said, come on, Gail, come up and sing with the band. I had never sang in front of anybody in any big capacity at all. And so for the first time, my adult peers heard me sing, and they all were like, what are you doing? You need to be a singer. And I'm like, how? Yeah, right. Everybody wants to be on stage or this or that. I said, rich people, famous people, other people do that, not some country bumpkin from Southern Oregon. And my husband on that honeymoon encouraged me, said, why not? And that's the motto I ended up living by is why not? And so music just followed me because at that point, in Los Angeles, being crazy and young, I just started telling everybody, even though I had never done any of this, when they'd say, what do you do for a living? I would say, oh, I'm a professional singer and sax player. I hadn't had my sax in my mouth since high school, and I hadn't ever been on a stage, but I BS'd my way well enough to get myself on a big stage in L.A. I was working with Aaron Neville's band at the time, but those our age will remember who Aaron Neville was. And we had a blast, and I sat in front of that spotlight for the first time, and I thought, whatever, this is what I want to do. And so I started following what became my passion. It was always in me, but I hadn't really realized it until I had the encouragement of my first husband. And so one thing led to the other. And a few years into our marriage, he basically said, are we ready to have children? And I'm like, heck no, I'm still chasing this neon rainbow. And so that led to Music or Me ultimatum, which didn't fare well for my marriage. So I became single for many years, but I did pursue music at all degrees. I toured several times with a theatrical setting, a show called A Closer Walk with Patsy Cline that came out of Canada, hired me to take it on the first national tour. Big boots to fill for a country musician, Patsy Cline. And I was honored. And I ended up getting to know her family very well. I still keep in touch with her daughter and her grandchildren. But Patsy's husband helped me put together my first ever professional recording. It's got me and Patsy Cline on the same recording, 6 and 6. She does 6 songs and I do 6. That was an honor. And I collaborated with the Cline estate for many years with that show in one capacity or the other, ended up being a director, producer, casting person, all of those things. So I really got immersed in musical theater, which I had no idea what that was about. But when I found that avenue, I loved it because it could bring in all these aspects of my personality. And in that case, Patsy Cline's personality and mine matched up really well. And Charlie Dick, Patsy's husband, said, there's probably another person that may sound a little more like Patsy naturally than you do. However, you are as if she's still alive, the spitting image of her personality and her spunk. And early on in my singing back in Washington, D.C. days, I had a Western swing band and I had a blues band that worked simultaneously, but I also fronted some other bands. And this old sax player, man, I had been around a long time. And he says, you remind me of somebody I worked with back many years ago. And I said, who's that? And he goes, she was from here. Her name was Patsy Cline. I'm like, Patsy Cline, you worked with Patsy Cline? He said, what was that like? And he says, well, you remind me a lot like her. You've got that same grit and determination. That's
Wow.
yeah, it was.
You like channeling Patsy Cline.
Yeah, in one way or the other. But that was a great avenue for me to act. I learned to be behind a camera, which I found that I loved. And musical theater found me, other roles found me. I ended up touring again. I ended up in Canada with a big production. And then I ended up as a solo artist, Gail Bliss, with my own country music. Started to tour in Canada extensively. Canada took me to Nashville, where I ended up working for one of my idols. His name was Chet Atkins, a major guitar player and producer from the early days of country music in Nashville. Owen Bradley, the Bradley brothers, Owen and Harold Bradley, which produced Patsy Cline, ended up working on one of my projects. And I went to work for Chet and an organization down in downtown Nashville that produced major music events. And so I was the talent booker for the Chet Atkins International Musicians Days, the first years of it. And it was a week-long event in Nashville, over 40-some stages, and music from all around the world. So my flight attendant international traveler kicked in, and I started traveling all over the world, booking bands and bringing them to Nashville. That included acts like Mark Knopfler from the Dire Straits, for instance. Big names, and some not so big names, but that had true musician qualities. So in Nashville, when I first got there, I didn't say anything about being a performer and entertainer myself, even though that's what I wanted to do. But I met all the bigwigs that made things happen in Nashville. So I worked that angle for a while. Finally, someone heard me singing, humming in the bathroom or something and said, wait a minute, what's going on here? Like in Los Angeles, New York, Nashville, there's a lot of wonderful talent hidden behind the scenes.
So you were a professional singer and in the industry, and for a while in one capacity or another. And you're right about musical theater, because I've done musical theater. You are talking to Dolly when I was in college. That's right. And I was a dancer too, so I do understand that pull of wanting to continue and still be involved, right? And still be in any part of it.
When you're talking a 37-year career, I've got stories that would take days and many podcasts to talk about. But ultimately, what happened with The Voice was that I turned 60 years old, and I never just wanted to have that big milestone just pass me by without recognizing it. My life has been so busy. My husband, my current husband, and I have crazy lives. He works half his year in Antarctica, where I don't get to see him. I don't get to go there. Now he's in Wisconsin working. I'm in South Carolina. So we have a very interesting, multifaceted life. But sometimes, if you get this busy and you're doing this and that, you fail to stop long enough to recognize exactly what's going on in your life, in the world, in your family, in your friends. And I did not want to have 60 just fly by without giving it a thank you, really, because I've had so many wonderful adventures. No, I never got big and famous with the big record deal. Got close a couple times, but I've been satisfied. I've made a living as an entertainer and as a flight attendant and many other things. But I wanted to stop and say, okay, what is 60 meaning to me? And so I said, okay, I want to do 6 epic things during my 60th year to celebrate 60. My birthday is the day after Christmas. So as you can imagine, my birthday in itself gets overlooked all my life. The birthday / Christmas present is
Right.
I decided, even though my husband was gone, he was in Antarctica that time. I said, I'm going to throw myself a party on my birthday and I'm going to have a cake. So my girlfriends from Oregon, my besties, shipped, one of them's a baker. She shipped me to South Carolina this beautiful little 60th birthday cake. We had a party. That was epic number 1, because it was epic. I did not just let it fly by. So I set out to do these 6 epic things that I had decided at the origination of 60. Number 6 on the list was, for the first time in many years, I was going to take a bona fide vacation. And in this case, it was going to be 8 flight attendant ladies that we were going to go to Turkey. And I wanted to see all the biblical sites and just have some time where I wasn't on a layover, because on my layovers, I'm 20 to 36 hours in a place. I always say, they're like, oh, you've seen all these countries. I've seen a lot of hotels and I've seen a lot of restaurants in these countries, in this big cities, but getting out and really immersing in the countryside, that's something I don't get to do often. So I was very excited about epic number 6. October 7th happened in Israel, and we know the devastation that happened, and the world became in crisis, particularly in that region of the world. And they weren't certain what was going to go on politically and all those things in Turkey. So we canceled the trip. It was October 12th we were to leave. So it was only a few days after. So the trip got canceled. That was epic number 6. And it's towards the end of the year. My end of my 60th was coming along there. So my husband was gone. Here it was the time we were to be on vacation. I was twiddling my thumbs in bed one night, being paid to be on vacation leave, had nothing to do. And I thought to myself, darn it, I cannot go into this end of this year with nothing epic happening. So that was on my thought. Scrolling through Facebook, and up comes something I had not seen come to my feed before. And it said, The Voice. I had never seen The Voice before, but I knew it was something big because I heard about people talking about it. And I knew it was on NBC. And it said, audition now, final opportunity to sing for Reba McEntire on The Voice season 26. And I looked at that thing and I thought, oh, this is something spoofy. Why would this be coming to me? That's just a one-off. And then I thought about, if could it hurt to just push the audition button? So there it was in the middle of the night, and I hit that dang button. And I said to my friends, my besties back in Oregon, I said, hey, girls, you're never going to believe what I just did. I said, I would be completely surprised if they contact me. Within minutes, the way this thing works, within seconds, it came up and said, here's your opportunity in the next couple of days to audition. This is what you do. This is the time. Sign up for a time frame. So I signed up for the time frame. The thing that was hard for me to get through during all that audition process was the technical side of it, the filming of it, the videoing of it, the black screen, the singing to a screen instead of singing to an audience of 2,000 people. Very different. And I ran into these roadblocks the entire way. And I thought for sure, this is absolutely not going to happen. If it's going to happen, it's an act of God, meant to be something, I don't know. But the process in itself, just to know that I hit the button, just to have hit the button to say, yeah, why the heck not? If not now, when? Not having any idea what I was getting myself into. One thing led to the other. And as we know, epic number 6 came to life, and I actually made it onto The Voice, the oldest contestant ever in the United States, kicking butt with all these kids. They were young. My sparring partner on the battle round was 37 years younger than me. And I showed her a 1-2.
Yeah, you did. I thought, okay, I am contacting her. And I want my audience to see that, first of all, age is just a number, should you identify it as such. And the other thing is that it's never too late. It's never too late to pursue a dream. Never.
Not too late. You've got to be ready to take the highs with the lows, the good with the bad. And at this age, to be rejected from something is not the end of the world. Hell, if you haven't lived through a number of no's by now in your life, get out there and start getting them, because you need to live a little, right? But so I wasn't worried about what the outcome was. Just to have hit the audition button, just to have said, I hit that button. That's all I.
You said something very important, and I talk about this sometimes, but now everyone, you've heard it from someone else, and that is, go ahead and do whatever it is you want to do, whatever your passion is, but don't be vested in the outcome, because you never know how it's going to turn out. It's just the fact that you actually did the damn thing, okay? Whatever it was that you wanted to do, you did it. And at this stage of life, I know for me at this stage of life, there sure are a lot of things I haven't done yet. As you were talking, I wrote down my list for 7 epic things that I want to do by 70. And that brings me to something else I want to mention. I'm not at my age of 68. I've been through a lot to get to this point, and I understand why women don't like to tell their age. You mentioned that you were the oldest in the voice competition, and the closest to you was 37 years old or something like that. In terms of age, what was that like, being the oldest? How did the contestants and the judges and everybody else, how did they receive you?
That's really funny to ask, because in my opinion, in my mind, it is a number. I feel like I'm just like those youngsters, because I feel like that in my body. I'm still going, I'm still moving, I'm still shaking, and I feel as though I'm somewhat relevant, staying relevant with what's going on out there. But so even though I felt like that, in the aftermath, I've stayed in touch with a lot of these entertainers. They were all fantastic, by the way. I had the best experience. It was so much fun. And again, I think not worrying about the outcome really was the key. Just to have known that I tried was what was worth it, just as you mentioned. But so I'm out there, and we had many Zoom auditions that happened, or Zoom meetings that happened in advance to going to LA. In fact, it was, for me, it was many months of auditioning and working through things before I ever got the invite to go to LA. So once they decided on who their cast was, if you will, their contestant panel, we started doing these Zoom meetings, and you could see all 120 of us on the big screen. I knew I was older. There was no question about that. There were some people that may have looked as old as me, and no, 37 years was not my next in age. There were people that were in their 40s, maybe someone in their 50s, but no one else other in their 60s. So I get out there, and I must have made some sort of impression on the Zoom, because I had so many of the young people going, "Are you Gail? Are you Gail?" immediately within my first few minutes of arriving into the area where everybody was at. And I'm like, "Yes." And I'm like, "We remembered you from the Zoom." I guess my energy was on par with what they were thinking or what they were doing, or maybe even some cases what they wanted to be like. So that was fun. That was fun right off the bat. I'm like, okay, something's going right in my world here. And so I would hang with these kids, and we would work together and get our act together, so to speak. But for me, being older, I wasn't going to be out till the wee hours of the morning like I would have been in my 20s. I wasn't hanging at the pool, drinking and singing my lungs out till the wee hours. I had to put this instrument to bed, because even though I wasn't worried about the outcome, I still wanted to do well. I still have enough pride in what I do. I wanted to show out. So I went to bed early. I put this thing to rest. I didn't get to hang with all of them like they were doing, which kind of hurt my heart, because I wanted to be out there, but I was being responsible too with my instrument and my body. And I didn't get to do all of those things. But long story short, in the aftermath, after it was all said and done, and I've seen some of these kids, young entertainers, in recent months, and I say to them, because I'd hear them talk about somebody else that was on the show or something, somebody else, they have little nicknames for everybody. I'm like, okay, what did y'all call me? What were you saying behind my back? Because I hear you doing this. And it was hilarious. They were like, "Oh, we thought you were, ultra conservative at first. And then we found out you were hip. And then we did this and that. And we had to watch what we were saying. And I'm like, what gave you that thought? And they're just like, because you're older. And then several of my contestant friends, which I just love this, they still refer to me as Mama Gail. And so if I could be an inspiration to them or a pointed arrow to say, this is, if you want to talk to somebody that's got a lot of expertise or experience rather in this, that's been down this road. Of course, it was a different process of being in music when we were younger than it is today. Today is all about social media. I made myself available. And so if you want to glean anything from me, I'm here for you, because it's not an easy business. It's not an easy world to live in general, entertainer or not. But I love you guys and I love what you're doing. And I wish I had that kind of opportunity in my 20s.
I just so happened to start watching it on the night that you came on.
Oh,
and that's what made me decide to watch the whole season, because I thought you were fabulous.
Thank you.
Regardless of the age. And you have a range, not just a range in your voice, but a range in the genre that you perform in. And you could tell that you were seasoned, experienced, not nervous at all. What's it like when you finally, I forget how far you went. How far did you go?
I just went into the second level. That was it.
Second level. Okay. What was it like when you got passed on to the second level? What did that feel like?
It's show business. It's television. The bottom line is how NBC wants to have this thing work out. So it's not always as it appears. In fact, when I aired on television, I think I was on maybe the second night of my blind audition. But in reality, I filmed much later in the process. The teams were filling up. I'm not making that as an excuse for the fact that I didn't have one judge turn for me. I was a zero turn. That's what we called it. And heartbreaking in a way. But again, I wasn't worried about the outcome. And frankly, this was the funniest story. People are like, were you nervous? You must have been nervous singing for Gwen and Reba and Snoop and Michael Bublé. I'm like, no, that part didn't make me nervous at all. I've been elbow to elbow with many celebrities and performed in that range in that way before. But what made me nervous was the stage there, very dark. And when I take these off,
okay,
contacts,
okay,
by what I call Gail Braille. I feel out the stage. I didn't have much stage time there to do that. They didn't give us that. So what I was nervous about was that my Gail Braille was going to fail me and that I was going to bite it trying to get on and off the stage in my high heels without being able to see very well. Meanwhile, they allow people to come into the audience by a lottery ticket situation. There is a small audience there and the audience builds as the show progresses. I had no idea, but 8 of my friends from Grants Pass, Oregon, decided that they were going to get themselves down there. I didn't even know when I was going to audition. They don't tell you that until the night before. And so they just took a chance to get themselves into LA and try to go see a blind audition if they had the opportunity to get in, because they were not chosen by the lottery. So lo and behold, not only did they get themselves in, but it happened to be the audition that I was singing at. I had no idea they were there. At one point, I staged to where I had to walk stage left, and my Gail Braille was working apparently, because all of a sudden I saw this big blonde hair of one of my girlfriends.
They were standing on the offside.
They were in the stands there.
Wow.
These kids since elementary school and
wow.
Dear friends. And then I laser focused on the fact that, oh my gosh, all my girlfriends are sitting out there. Had no idea. So that threw me. And I went for this note that for me was very sharp, I think. I don't know if people caught that or not. I'm sure Gwen I'm sure they heard that. But then I'm like, oh, in my mind, you're singing along or dancing along. And you're like, shit, that wasn't a very good note or whatever. And you start all this inner dialogues going on. Then I had to move to the other side of the stage and go the other direction. And I was so tickled by the fact that I had friends that were actually there, also 60 years old, celebrating their 60 years on this planet as well. I was just so dang tickled. I went, and unbeknownst to anybody, nobody's made a deal. I sang the wrong words to that hit song. I sang typical verse. This was line 1, line 2, line 3, line 4. And then they all have to rhyme and make some sense in the story. I sang the line 1 2 times. Nobody caught it. The words didn't make sense. The rhyme wasn't there. But in my mind, I'm going, oh, I just messed that up so bad. And so I'm like thinking, it's over. There's just no way. I know there's not that many spots. And so I came back center stage to end the song, and I riffed that last thing as long as I could, thinking, come on, somebody can. And nobody did. I stood there, took a deep breath, and I'm like, you know what? I felt I didn't deserve a chair turn amongst this amazing group of talent. Just so much talent. And some of the most amazing talent didn't even get a chance to audition. So I was incredibly blessed by the fact that I was standing there on national television. I actually made my story. They focused on my backstory. They told a lot about me as an individual. I was just so thrilled with that. And you might recall, I had a moment to address the audience in the panel, and I said, this has just been an experience of a lifetime, and keep living, keep dreaming, keep having fun. That's all that mattered. And I did that right there in that moment. And somehow, something in there made an impression on Snoop Dogg, of all people. A rap artist that I would have had no idea would have had any interest.
He's multi-tiered.
He sure is. He really is. If he likes Martha Stewart, obviously, he's white women. So, yeah. Snoop turned for me, played his replay. I had no idea a replay existed. And so I got that buzzer, and I'm telling you, you see me jumping up and down like a hyena because you asked what it was like to get advanced to the next round. I was so excited. I couldn't believe it because I was singing a song that first round that really wasn't in my wheelhouse. I can sing that stuff, but it's really not my wheelhouse. And I thought, just give me an opportunity to make it another level where I can do something else to show what I can do. And Snoop believed in me enough to put me on his team, which was just a thrill. And it really, honestly, it couldn't have gone any better because had it been very cliche, had I gotten a forced chair turn and Reba McEntire, who's my age, who's been in the business as long as I have, who's a country singer, an idol of mine because of her. I love her acting as much as I love her singing. So I thought that would have been who I would have chosen had I had the chance. But the fact that I didn't get the chance and Snoop Dogg chose me, to me, looking back at the whole experience, I'm like, that was just the best it could possibly be. And being his replay and being so unlikely pairing, it gave me that much more exposure through the whole process and leading into the next round. And that was wonderful from that perspective. But just for my heart and soul, that's how I actually would have wanted it had I thought more about it in the very first place, because it was the unexpected. It was the unlikely. And that's who I am as a person. That's who I am at 62 years old now, is don't think that I'm going to go down laying in bed, eating bonbons, and just waiting for the world to happen around me. I'm going to go out and be part of what makes the world happen, because that's who I am. I'm energetic. God's given me good brain, decent health. I work at that. We have to work at that to keep at it and keep, hopefully nothing tragic happens in one's life, because there's a lot of that happens too, and it's out of your control, certainly. But even in those situations, whatever it is that comes at you, just to try to keep the perspective of keep at it, keep moving, keep trying to stay engaged, be an overcomer. Look for that which motivates you, which grounds you, whether it be family, whether it be a relationship with Jesus Christ, whether it be just engaging in self-motivation through other means, like watching podcasts such as yours, and staying encouraged and staying engaged, despite what you're going through. Because there are a lot of people, especially if you've lived a long time, you've likely been through some hard times. So we're at that age now, too, where not only have our parents passed in many cases, but our friends are starting to pass away, too. And that, to me, at this moment, motivates me more than anything to say, you know what? There's one thing for certain, and that's going to be that we're not going to be here forever. So in the years you've got left, make them count. Make them count to yourself. Don't look back and have to say, what if? I don't like what ifs. I'm a why not girl.
I just love this. And it's such a fantastic story. All the twists and turns in your story in terms of how you got on The Voice and that ultimate surprise to be paired with someone like Snoop Dogg, who was so very different, who gave you a whole completely different viewpoint. I also revel in the fact that you did the damn thing, girl. You pursued your dreams. So many of us want the chance to do just that, pursue our dreams. You would have thought things would never have happened in the way that they did. And really, I think it was a God thing. I believe that God brings you to it, and then he'll bring you through it. The interesting thing about it is you don't exactly know how you're going to get through it, but that's what it's all about. It's not so much about the destination. It's really about the journey, the things you learn along the way. And so many of us, the things that we learn along the way, you find you're able to apply to whatever is happening next. All I knew was I saw Gail, and I didn't know Gail. I didn't know anybody at NBC. I thought, how is this going to happen? But I'm going to reach out to her. So I said, wait a minute. She's on The Voice. So that means that she has an Instagram. So let me see. And she was on Instagram. And there you were. I reached out to you, and you were warm and gracious. And I wanted you to be on the podcast because I want to inspire all my listeners and say, girlfriend, it ain't over till it's over. And the reality is, you're right. If you take good care of yourself, aging doesn't mean that you have to be in a bed with tubes coming out of you, talking out of your mind, taking all kinds of medications, waiting to die. Absolutely not. Aging is an opportunity to go ahead and do the thing that you want to do and to make sure you're well enough to do them. Taking good care of your body, that's not taking it for granted, treating it as a temple that it actually is, and going ahead and doing the research and finding out who you need to have on your team, so to speak, to keep you healthy. Do you need the doctor, your Chinese medicine doctor, your holistic practitioner, your health coach, your nutritionist, your fitness person? Whatever it is, it's okay to have that team. And some might say, oh, that's expensive to do that. This is my advice to you on that. And I know some of you have heard me say this before, but you either pay for it on the front end or the back end, but guaranteed you're going to pay for it on the back end. And you don't want to have a chance to have as much fun, right? If you pay for it on the back end, okay? You're dead. Come on. When you pay for it on the front end, you get to have the benefit of investing in yourself so that you can go ahead and pursue your passions the way Gail Bliss did. Gail, thank you so much for being on the V.I.B.E Living podcast. It has been wonderful having you here today.
It's wonderful to be here, Linus. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks for listening to the V.I.B.E Living podcast. And don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment, and share this podcast. Have a fantastic day, and don't forget to vibe. Bye-bye, everybody.